So this morning, welcome along to our Quitch webinar, and I'm delighted this morning to have Steve, who's the MD of Vce Education, join us. And Quitch and Vce Education have recently formed a partnership where we work with schools, particularly in the VCE area. And what I'd like to do is ask Steve perhaps to give everybody a bit of a background on Vce Education and what you do. And then we will perhaps jump into some questions, Steve, that I've already received from a number of people, some queries they have. So, Steve, over to you for now and welcome along.
All right, thank you. Thank you for having me here. So I'm from Vce Education, and we have been running student revision lectures in regional Victoria, and then in the last probably 10 to 15 years also in metropolitan Victoria. Initially, the idea was to bring the big city teachers into country and regional towns, and then provide access to students who ordinarily wouldn't be able to have access to exam markers or executive panel members, to give them that opportunity to ask questions and to reinforce, I guess, their teachings that they've had throughout the year. In recent years, we've built, I guess, on that platform, having access to these wonderful, wonderful presenters and textbook authors and executive panel members. We wanted to utilize them in more ways than just these student lectures. So we started producing trial exams, training programs for teachers as well. But the most recent and probably the most exciting thing that we've been doing in the last roughly 4 to 5 years is the Vce Challenge App. Now, the first year in its early iteration, we produced an app that every day was releasing multiple choice questions to students' phones at 4 o'clock. And while the content was great, the delivery of daily messages and questions in line with the study design was maybe a little bit too much to digest. And we found students were wanting to answer these questions in batches at a time that suited them. So now the flexibility is there. The current version of the app continues to release new questions in line with the curriculum, with the current study design on a weekly basis throughout terms 2 and 3. But those questions remain on students' phones. And the idea is to challenge the students' knowledge, not of the exam necessarily, but of the subject on an ongoing basis on the one device that they hold most precious, which is their phones.
But we couldn't disagree with that in fact we're all attached to our mobile phones these days. So Stephen, so in terms of the students, so they will log in, they will have material available to them up to and including the exam period. So they will have material every week that they can go back and revise as often as they wish to consolidate and reinforce that learning. Is that correct? And which subjects are you offering as well, I guess?
Correct. So the questions there will remain up until exam day, and students can revisit them as often as they wish, just to test their knowledge and their understanding of the subject. As I say, in line with the study design. So we're not deviating, we're not looking at business management as a whole. It is very much in line with the VCE curriculum for units 3 and 4. So the subjects that we offer are the sciences. So we're looking at biology, chemistry, physics, and psychology, although there's probably debate about whether psychology is a science or not at some schools, but I'll leave that up to the individuals. We also have subjects like health. We have food studies covered. Food studies is an enormous one for us, as we do a huge amount in the space of teacher training programs for food studies. And business management, which for this year is actually free for every student in Victoria. And we have literally thousands of students engaging in that business management app right now as we speak. So they're the main subjects that we cover. We don't cover any of the maths purely because it's not conducive to answering questions to do with mathematics. It would end up being more a thing where people were answering mathematical equations. And that's something that we wanted to steer away from with the app. So the purpose of the app is to test the knowledge and not to be working out an equation. It's something that students can do while they're on the train coming home. They can simply pull out their phone and answer a batch of questions. They can do it in the back of the car driving to Aunt Meryl's house. There are so many opportunities where you can do it on the go. And I think that's the big difference with other revision tools that are out there, that it is all powered from your phone anywhere and everywhere you are.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, which is, as you say, that really works for the students. They're looking for materials they can work on that is accessible to them 24/7. So, Stephen, so you talked about the mobile version, then you talked about it's aligned with the curriculum and the number of units you're covering. Can I ask who actually writes the content? So how do we know that content is, I guess, exactly what's required in terms of these students using their time wisely?
Yes, certainly. So the content is written by our current writers and presenters. So people like Andrew Douch, who many of you are familiar with, are involved with the app as well. Generally speaking, all of our presenters, all of our authors are all experienced markers of the exam. And I think that's something that we've always tried to do as a company, is distinguish ourselves from other people who might provide any sort of educational service, is to get the best people available to deliver, whether it be a talk, whether it be a practice exam, or the questions that appear in the Quitch app that we produce. The people that are writing this content are involved in either the grassroots of building a study design, chief assessors, textbook authors, people who know not just the course content backwards, but also the marking guidelines backwards. And that's an important distinction to make, because very often we get caught up in teaching and we forget that there's an assessment criteria in the background there as well. Maybe not so much of an issue or a concern for teachers that might be watching this, but more so an issue or a concern that some parents might think, what's the difference between a teacher that marks and a teacher that they've both got the same goal? They do want the students to do very well, but they're looking at it from different points of view. One is to teach content, and the other is to assess what their understanding is of that content. And then particularly when it comes down to the exam process, we are looking at how students respond to questions. And this is something, if you don't mind, I'll just bring up a little
Sure.
I hope this works. Am I able to share something?
Yeah, we should be, Steve.
No?
No? Let's have a look.
I've just taken a few screenshots of the app in action. And there we go. Now, I'm hoping that we've got that on the screen right now.
Yes,
so it's just
all there, Steve. That's right. Yep.
So this is what people will be met with, obviously, when you first jump into the app. Quitch is the name that you need to know, that you need to download if you're wanting to purchase it as an individual. And then we go along. I'm looking at the business management app. Obviously, this is free. And I'm just going to address the game one first question here, a sole trader. So a sole trader does not have which of the following characteristics? That's the question. Then the students would either click on any of those four responses. Now, I've collects all profits made by the business. I say that as a sole trader, no, I am married and my wife collects half of the profits from the business. So let's submit and see what happens. That's wrong, all right? So my rationale is wrong there. Everything is wrong about that. We go back to the question again. Try once more. Still wrong. This is the third go now, let's just say hypothetically, and it's come up also saying this is the correct answer. As you can see here, the tick is next to the limited liability. Let's try again with another question. A public company has, and there's your four options there. Selected a listing on the ASX. Correct. You've unlocked the correct badge. Little rewards like that as well, I think, are quite important to have students' involvement with the app. So that's a very basic view of the very first week in the Quitch app. I'll stop sharing. So the subject, business management.
Yeah, but that's great, Steve, because it gives people the context that they can go back, practice, make sure they do actually understand the question. And it gives them, as you say, it highlights the answer for you if you've got it wrong a number of times. And then, as you said, you can come back and revise that material as often as required for you to consolidate and reinforce it as a student. So I think that's fantastic. Stephen, I have a few questions here from people. One of the questions was, do you find students just give up after a couple of weeks, or are they staying engaged? What's been your experience with that?
Yeah, truth be told, there are waves of engagement. We'll find that during the later part of the June-July holidays, there's definitely an influx in people who I like to put down as feeling guilty for not doing things during the holidays, that they jump on and they start interacting more with the app at that particular time. Do find that as the questions are released weekly, there is a spike every Monday to Tuesday. They're released on a Monday. And every Monday to Tuesday, there's a spike in usage, which then does drop down. And then there's another spike on the weekend, I guess, when students have got a little bit more time and they're possibly fumbling around with their phones anyhow. And they say, okay, well, I'll just run through this next batch of questions. And then it sort of averages out. There is a number or decent percentage of students who purchase the app and only start engaging as we approach what I like to call the business end of the exam period. So as it hits now, towards the end of August, the beginning of September, there's definitely an influx in students who are going back and either revisiting or going through all of the questions from day one for the first time as well. So there's also an increase in the amount of students booking the app now as we speak, because they're looking at it as an affordable, I guess, way to revise the content of the study design. So I wouldn't say that anyone's given up. There's no real evidence to show that, but there are definitely cycles in paths there. SAC periods tend to be a period where people step away. I can only assume in the week leading up to the GAT this year, we will see a decline in the number of people working with the app as they prepare for the SAC, but there will be a spike after the SAC has been sat. The GAT. The GAT has been sat, and we'll see then students starting to use the app more and more after the GAT this year, which is the 7th of September.
7th of September. Okay, great. Steve, another couple of questions. How do you know it works? Have you any proof? Have students given you any feedback that it actually has worked for them in terms of their performance?
Yeah, so we've worked together with a number of universities using the app as well, and a number of schools. The rebooking rate for schools is close to 100%. So schools that have tried it once will end up using the app again. We also receive a lot of feedback from students themselves saying that they liked the app. An interesting one that we had a partnership with Deakin University, who are providing the app to students to use from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. And the feedback from the app in particular was very, very high. And the students finding it to be a very easy and non-intimidating way of revising. So it's not, if you get something wrong, you're not saying it in front of a classroom where your peers are watching this. You are being encouraged to answer everything, regardless of whether you know or don't know. The important aspect there is that it will help you identify where your strengths and weaknesses lie. And you can take that information and then go to your teacher and say, oh, there's a couple of questions here that I don't know the answer to. Can you help me out? Or we haven't covered this. Do I need to know this for the exam? Sometimes you might have missed out on a day of school. You didn't realize that this is how a question is phrased and how that can throw you. So that the questions that are appearing on Quitch are a way of preparing for that exam. Not necessarily exam prep, but it is preparing your knowledge and understanding for the exam and providing questions that in some cases might throw you a little bit.
Yeah, which is a good thing. And as you said, I think that's a really important point you said, Steve, that there's those personalized analytics. So we'll identify for me as a student, which are those areas that I'm struggling with, that's highlighted in red and so on. If I've kind of blitzed it, it's green and so on. So I think that's a really important thing, that personalized analytics at scale for students. And I think the other point you talked there about the students talking about feeling safe, they really enjoyed using it. And I think that other point about the student is not identified to their peers. So there might be a pink kangaroo or a yellow koala or so on. Only their teacher will know who they are, which makes them, I saw, if it takes me 20 times to get it right, nobody needs to know about that. I can feel safe as a student that this is all about myself. This is all about me practicing to whatever requirements I need. So I think that's
right.
Great. Steve, another couple of questions, if I may.
Sure.
This is probably one from a teacher, but not all exams have multiple choice questions. So how does this relate to the exam in that context?
It is a question that we get asked a lot. And for some of the subjects that don't have multiple choice questions, which there are a few, this isn't exam prep. And as I've stressed earlier on, this is all about getting a better understanding of the content for whichever subject it is. So for something like business management, where you might not be focusing on multiple choice or fill in the blank types of questions, it's not in preparation for the exam in particular. It is just understanding the content, knowing it. The multiple choice provides an easy platform for students to give things a go. And bearing in mind, as we just covered, we don't want to reprimand students for getting something wrong and play a game of snakes and ladders where they fall down at the bottom and, woe is me. We want to provide a platform where students go, okay, well, I didn't get this right. What is it? Let me try again. That's what it is. And very often there'll be a pop-up notification too to say, great, you understand the concept of this, or the reason you got something wrong was because of X, Y, and Z. You must always remember to consider this. So there are explanations, there are hints, there are benefits there along the way to help students go, okay, I get it now. Even if they got it wrong, they can have that opportunity to get it right and find out why they got it wrong and why this is the correct answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good in terms of pedagogy kind of style and so on, that it's not just
Correct.
about giving them the different options, but actually also explaining to them why, in fact, this question, why you got it wrong, this is the correct answer and so on. And also I like the idea of hints. So if I need a little bit of help with it, I can get that as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's great. I do. That's excellent. I have a few questions around privacy and so on, which is always very important, of course, for our students. And so someone has asked the question around, will you share data with third parties? And also as a second part of that, do you use student details for any marketing purposes? So could you answer those questions, Dave?
No. So we certainly won't sell to any third party with any purchase of the app. If there's a booking that's made online, we do have in our terms and conditions that you'll be notified of our events that do take place. So there is that. You can easily opt out of that though. So that's not mandatory. But the idea of passing on third-party information or your details to anybody else is not something that we would do. Also, bear in mind, we only deal with Year 12 students. So if you have signed up to our material, you're a Year 12 student, you will receive maybe one, possibly two emails promoting subsequent events, which we only have the two public events that we will be running that you'd be notified of. And that would be it. So there is no bombardment of marketing or anything like that we would do.
Okay, fantastic. I think that answered that question. And a couple of other questions, again, teacher related. A teacher has asked, can I have access to the app before I recommend it to my students?
Okay, we certainly can provide, you're more than welcome to take up one of the subjects and you can contact us about that. So that is available to you. If you want to purchase the app and try it out, you're more than welcome to do so. There is no way that you're able to provide the same login details to students. So we're not that concerned. We want teachers to try the product to see what it's like and then promote it to their students.
Okay, so that's easily done. And then again, another teacher one, Steve, what reports can I get as a teacher on how the students are performing to help them in their outcomes?
So there's two different versions of Quitch that we've made available. One is where students can just jump on and buy it directly on their phones. That does cut out the teacher's involvement in what kind of reporting is available there, because that is something that the entire state is involved with. So something like the business management app that we have made available for free, thanks to the very good people at Victoria University. That is open to anyone and everyone. They jump in. The only people who can see the statistical information are those in the background, such as myself and my team and Grainne's team at Quitch. So that's one option there. If you're a teacher and you're looking at seeing how your students are performing, who's engaging in the most, we do make it available that a school can purchase the license to Quitch for a particular subject or a number of particular subjects. And by doing so, there is reporting available for you to assess who's getting involved and who's not getting involved, who's using it, who's doing well, who isn't doing well, that sort of thing. Bearing in mind, I know some people will draw comparisons with a program like Edrollo, which essentially is a very different beast, as it is a program to more or less eliminate the teaching process in general. It's really designed to say, okay, theoretically, and I say theoretically, a teacher could get students to watch the Edrollo videos and do the Edrollo activities in lieu of a presentation themselves that they would do to their class. So it is a much bigger, grander offering or prospect than, say, what the Quitch app is there to do. The Quitch app is in support of your teaching. It's in support of students who are going through the program. It's not a substitute, and therefore it doesn't have that same in-depth reporting capacity as, say, a program like Enrollo. The other difference too is that the Quitch app is available at the moment for $14.99 per student per subject. Enrollo is significantly more expensive because of the task that's involved there for Enrollo.
I think that's an important point, Steve, that you're not trying to replace teachers at all, but in fact trying to make their life easier, and that of the student in terms of them being able to student practice as often as required, and for the teacher live data on knowing what is those content areas students are struggling with, or indeed which students are struggling, so that we can support them, because we all know from our research that the earlier we support students and intervene, should they need it, then the much greater chance of success they have.
Correct. Yeah.
Steve, I'm getting, I think, to the kind of pointy end of the questions here. So you've answered this question. Someone had asked, can the students revisit the question? So you said they can revisit as kind of often as required. What happens when a student gets something wrong?
Well, as we saw in that little demonstration, essentially they'll just receive a notification saying, no, try again. There is no slap on the wrist or anything like that. As mentioned, we want to encourage students to try and try again. So that's all that happens.
They're
given another opportunity, and sometimes they'll be given a hint or an explanation as to why that particular answer is incorrect. But there is no reprimand. If anything, I would love, if a student would to just take a screen capture of that question if they got it wrong, and if they're really baffled, just go back to school the next day and say, here's my phone and this is what I got wrong. Why is that wrong? I don't understand. Generally, if we've thrown in a question that is a little bit challenging and we've deliberately put in a few questions there that we know will trick students, and that may be because of the phrasing, we will also provide an explanation as to why somebody might get that wrong in that particular instance.
So it's more a motivating way. It identifies your gaps, motivates you to come back, try again. You earn badges, you earn points, you can have fun competing against all of your friends across Victoria. Lots of positive things there. Steve, I've come to the end of the questions. So I'm going to see if you want to do perhaps a kind of a final wrap up, but also say a huge thank you for joining us today. And it's a pleasure working with you guys. And it's just really great to see some local business come together to support our local students. They've had a tough few years. So really excited about what we can do in this space.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I look at the app now that we're producing together for the students, and I think too, because of the last couple of years, we now are in a position to understand that there are things that have educational value that can be done on a phone in your own time when your 17-year-old is locked in their bedroom. I think that's a positive that we can take out, that there is an opportunity, there is an app there that students can have a bit of fun with, they can revise content with, they can do it lying in bed with their legs up against the wall, answering some questions, most importantly, reiterating what teachers have taught students throughout the year. And I think you touched on it beforehand, it is a support for teachers, and it's a support for students. It can be done anywhere and everywhere. And I think that's the big difference there. There's no, I need to turn my computer on, I need to get up and pull out the book and then get the notepad out and make notes on the side. It is a very easy and succinct way to revise throughout the year, or if you want to make a collection towards the end and have that funnel effect where all the pressure builds up, you can do it at that time too. And I remember a couple of years ago, the psychology app that we had running, the Vce Challenge App for psychology, and within 48 hours of the exam, we had nearly everyone using and revisiting the app, which I thought was hilarious. But it shows that people were going, what else can I do? And then they say, wow, I have this series of questions, 170 odd questions in line with the study design at my fingertips, and I can simply click my way through it. And hopefully when they're at that point too, and they've gone through everything, they're getting everything right as well. Now, what a confidence boost is that as well, for then going into the exam the following day or in 2 days' time, knowing like I've done practice exams, I've done my revision, I've been to school, I went through the app, and there's nothing there that is blaring or staring at me and saying, I don't know this, or I don't understand this. Because confidence is a big part of your approach towards the exam, and confidence in your own knowledge. And the app helps identify that you are on the right track. And in some cases, we'll also identify that these are the areas that you might need to go back and visit.
I think that's a really important point, that confidence building. Absolutely. You want the students to be confident going in to do that, final assessment and so on. That's a really important point. So I guess finally, Steve, then it's about how do students access it? How can students get onto Quitch, and how can they access all of these subjects you're talking about to practice their content?
Well, I'm an Apple person, so I jump on the App Store. You've got Google Play as well. Look up Quitch, download Quitch, and then select whichever subjects that you're interested in. They're $14.99 per subject, but I have to reiterate again, thanks to the generosity of Victoria University, the business management app is free. You can either contact us and we can automatically upload you, or you can go via the App Stores or Google Play as well. But $14.99, you get access to, in some cases, close to 200 questions. I'll say on average around about 170 questions per subject. We're looking at around about 8 cents per question is what you're paying. And I don't think that there's anything else around that is as cheap as that.
Yeah, and such value. Steve, thank you so much for joining us. It was great to hear the background, great to hear the way we're supporting students, and the fact that we know it is actually working for them. And I think an important point about that, building confidence as well, the motivating way that you're actually delivering the content to them, gets pushed to their mobile device, identifies for them early that personalized analytics around their performance so they know what to focus on. And as we said, have some fun as well. And if the teachers want access to the data, that can be arranged if the school purchases the app, and then identify where the areas are of difficulty in content, but also in terms of supporting students who might be at risk or need some additional support. So, Steve, wishing us all success with this, and hopefully the students will get great value out of it. And again, thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot, Steve.
All right.
Bye now.
Bye for now.